Hello, this is Michael Hexter. Welcome again to my Politics 2100 video cast here on YouTube. And today, or this episode, I'm calling Democrats on the Left Refuse to Apply the Political Lessons of Gramsci, unlike the GOP. So Gramsci is spelled Gramsci. Antonio Gramsci was a political thinker, Marxist philosopher and political leader in early 20th century Italy, and he died young in a prison in one of Mussolini's prisons in 1937, and he wrote in prison a lot of notebooks that have become his political writing that is quite influential, but in my view, not influential enough, especially on the left, especially here in the United States. For instance, a magazine like Jacobin, which is a intellectual and political magazine, to me, in what I've read of Jacobin, doesn't really seem to be Gramsci. Obviously, many of the writers know who Gramsci is, and they could probably recite some of the central theories of Gramsci, but they don't seem to apply him, I think, in a way that's relevant and useful to our current political situation. And I'll try here in this video to show at least where Gramsci could help out in our immediate political situation that we find ourselves in. So anyway, one of the central ideas in Gramsci's work is the idea of hegemony. So what hegemony means is when a ruling class or ruling elite can rule not directly by the exertion of force, of forcing people via police or military to do things for them, but instead create a cultural milieu, a cultural umbrella where their rule, their domination appears natural, appears it may be even inevitable, and that they can in some sense hide behind this veil of inevitability of cultural institutions, like for instance religious institutions or academic institutions, and they seem the social system that supports them in our system, in our society, capitalism, seems natural and inevitable, and they don't need to police directly so much everyday life and control people directly in the form of domination, direct domination. So this idea, and also that to take political power, people have derived from his ideas that one ought to create cultural, either work through cultural institutions or create counter cultural institutions that create this sense of common sense. Another way to think about it is they create a common sense for your political program. So you're not just advocating for your political program or your policy program, but you're also creating a common sense that surrounds it, that makes it natural, that makes it, or at least logical and rational, and it creates a framework. Another way to think about it, and this is a way that some academics have applied Gramsci using discourse theory, is that it creates a frame around which the discourse that you're advocating seems more persuasive, because you have shown people that it fits in with other aspects of their lives, with things they already believed, and you are simply making it a part of their current understanding. You're not just coming from outside and create, preaching to them your new ideas or different ideas. And so I think, and the reason why I titled this video this way is that, and other people have commented about this, and it's not a totally original insight on my part, that the right wing in the United States, especially in the last 50 years, has engaged in a kind of hegemonic project to shift the U.S., let's say the hegemony of the ruling class in the United States, toward a more exploitative and less of a social safety net for people. I mean, this is all obvious. This is and a much greater inequality and a more direct reliance on capital or use of sort of various kinds of pirate-like piracy within capitalism to create more inequality and more extreme wealth for a few individuals, and breaking up the consensus of the Second World War and thereafter in both the Western Europe and the United States, where there was this kind of an entente, an agreement that there wouldn't be super exploitation of labor, super exploitation of people's lives, that there would be social supports of various kinds, and that was the sort of direction of society. And they decided in the 1970s to change that direction, or not they decided, but there was a political fight, and this project, this hegemonic project that I'm describing of the right wing, that to go through institutions like the courts and to turn the courts into a political instrument for the right wing, and also ways to deal with the press, where the press, one, to create organs. They created their own organs. For instance, Rupert Murdoch, I don't know if he ever read Gramsci, but he and Roger Ailes, they created alternative institutions for their far right agenda, and for an agenda that was about breaking up the Keynesian consensus of the 40s, 50s, and 60s. And so anyway, so this hegemonic project, has meant that the right wing, in some sense, they can agitate in part for their program, but they also have various helpers or accessory players that help them appear more respectable and more serious and more, let's say, even especially now when they are actually trying to undermine some basic democratic institutions and are appearing to become neo-fascist, or they are neo-fascist, that they are and are creating a long coup against some of the fundamentals of American democracy and the Constitution. They are still given cover by some of these, like I wrote, and I also talked about in, I think it was episode 1 of this channel, this video cast, that they are given cover. Even they're made to look better, from a political standpoint, by the media than they really are, even though, there's some hair pulling and some concern that's being raised, but still the in my view, the GOP and the neo-fascists in the GOP are given a lot of cover by the media. So anyway, this concept of hegemony and cultural power of the or to use to be focusing in part on culture, or on, I would also say ethics, really ethical what are the ethical principles that are behind what is the good? In other words, what do people consider to be the best or the highest good? All of that, I think, is very weak in the Democrats, and also, for whatever reason, left intellectuals who do not necessarily have to be in lockstep with the Democratic Party at all, and they are often critics of the Democratic Party, are also not utilizing some of the tools that Gramsci offered or seems to offer to left political movements here in the United States. So, to give you an example, so in the bargaining or negotiations that we are witnessing now in public about the size of the reconciliation package and the contents of the reconciliation package that the Democrats are trying to pass in the next week or so in Congress, and along with this infrastructure, the bipartisan infrastructure bill, we see how the Democrats have backed themselves into a corner because of their lack of a commitment to what I'm calling a hegemonic project that builds on the strengths of the Democratic Party from many years ago, 70, 80 years ago, including on the basis of the New Deal, and also the achievements of the New Deal that led to the political hegemony of the Democratic Party, at least in Congress, and also sometimes in the White House during the post-war era. But anyway, the Democratic Party of the last 30, 40 years has decided that they do not want to pursue a hegemonic project, that's specific to them, specific to the Democrats, that opposes the what became the Reaganite GOP and then subsequent GOPs, that they want to be a junior partner in a way that they simply want to be an outgrowth to the change that I'm talking about, this hegemonic project of the right wing, that they just wanted to be a lighter version of that they, a left, you can call it neoliberalism. So, and this has backed the Democrats into a corner, and they backed themselves into a corner because they don't have the offensive idea that they can create a common sense based on their values, on the values of care for others, the caring for others, and values of egalitarianism, and that a government that acts to protect people, and that also regulates big business, and makes the powerful, puts limits on what the power of private people, private wealth, and also corporations, and that and some of that has to do with the corruption of our politics, that in some sense politics has become so entwined with the money that that is donated by the rich and big corporations, so that the politicians themselves do not have an independent power base and independence of the most powerful private actors in our society. So anyway, so that they do not pursue a hegemonic project where they can say, no, we want to create a democratic, especially democratic view of society, and that is positive, that is exciting, that is visionary, that looks into the future, that is about protecting society, protecting people from the worst outcomes that might happen, and particularly now climate change and which is a consequence of our own economy, a consequence of our own use of fossil fuels in agricultural land use that we do, and also all nations of the world, or most nations of the world, are doing in some form or another. But we are some of the leaders and the worst offenders in that area. So anyway, so this without this vision or this hegemonic push, they do not have a lot of political arrows in their quiver when they propose a large spending package like this big, $3.5 trillion, which is it's not very big. Compared to what needs to happen, it's not big at all. I have advocated just for climate action, a $4 to $6 trillion per year spending over, let's say, a 10-year period, and which is still, it's cheap compared to what the damages will be from climate catastrophe. So, but anyway, this small first step appears to be, it's difficult to communicate about it. It's difficult to, while it has individual parts that people know are valuable, the Democrats themselves are not motivated. Not all Democrats, but many of them are, and especially the leadership, like Pelosi, Schumer, and Biden, are not filled with the vision of what they're trying to create in such a way that they communicate that resonantly with others, and also then create within their party, create fear in their opponents, because their opponents will feel like, no, we are going to be swept away by this vision that excites people and excites voters, and so they will potentially lose their seats if they decide to say, well, no, we don't. For instance, there are Democrats that are saying that Medicare shouldn't negotiate prices for drugs, and this is it's clearly a result of their corruption, and they're being bought off by pharmaceutical companies. But the leadership doesn't scare those people very much, because they are also involved in the same corruption, and these people know that. But let's say they decided, even though they had in the past taken money from pharmaceuticals and pharmaceutical companies, but now they decide that at this moment they are, and it appears to be this type of a realization that Biden and Pelosi and Schumer to some extent are experiencing, that their corruption and the status quo of doing politics has led them to this corner, this place where their very existence as a party and their success is endangered by their own modus operandi for the last few decades. So anyway, and so and also obviously agreeing to keep the filibuster is one of the key points in that whole situation. So they do not have this sense of inspiration, of a vision that is comprehensive, that motivates people, that says we are going to create a more caring society. You're not going to be living under such stress anymore about X, Y, and Z, child care, health expenses, the fact that a climate transition is very complicated, and we're not expecting you, homeowner or apartment renter or to take on all of the tasks that all of us need to do to transition to a renewable energy powered society, that we are inspired. Okay, we, the leadership, are inspired. So anyway, in that context, that sense of a hegemonic project of switching and changing the view of society so it conforms to the values and the individual issues that, let's say, the progressive wing of the Democratic Party, or even now the center of the Democratic Party, sort of agrees is probably more right than wrong, that they are not so inspired that they can inspire fear in those that oppose them, both within their party and also outside their party. So they are like lambs, okay? They're like political lambs, relatively speaking, rather than like lions, okay? And that they need to be more like political lions. And what I'm proposing here is that this commitment to a hegemonic project of transforming the society, but also of creating a common sense that says, look, that these are all commonsensical things that we're doing, including public investment, which has been anathema in the neoliberal era, okay, has been made to be sort of more the exception than the rule. In the era that we need to enter, it needs to be the central focus of the economy, or not the one central focus, at least a central focus of the economy. A leading path within the economy needs to be through public investment. And that this reconciliation package is a very, very, very small taste of what that public investment needs, where that public investment needs to go. Are there problems and issues with having massive amounts of public investment? Yes, it's not all uncomplicated, and it's not all without pitfalls, but it is absolutely the direction we need to go in. And so anyway, I am proposing that at least Gramsci offers some political tools to start to create this common sense where the Democrats, even if it's just starting on the progressive wing of the Democratic Party and not the leadership, can start to push back on the common sense of our current era, which the common sense is still based on a dog-eat-dog view of society, and a not this essentially what is a cooperative vision of people working together on society's problems with the help of government. And that's something that it's considered to be still an exceptional act. And so we need to create a framework where that is not an exceptional act, but it's part of the common sense of our era. So anyway, this is just one starting point. I think, in other videos I will return to, maybe not referencing Gramsci directly, but at least bringing up this idea again and again about how we need to be starting on a hegemonic project that switches our common sense to one that where we can face the major problems of our society. So anyway, if you like this video, please like, and also if you have any reactions to it that you want to share, please comment below. And also please subscribe to this channel if you're enjoying the content. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video.